Yeah, and I would say like this is so. I would be willing to bet by the time you went out to practice like that, deliberate practice. That's the name of it in the theory, right? Deliberate practice, where you're at the outer edge of your capacity, and where you're not fucking up all the time. So he talks about that in the learning code, right? Or in the talent code, and he talks about it in the Little Book of Talent. Like success ratios are like 50 to 80%. Success ratios are not 10% because that's called mental, like depression, right? They're not 100% because that's called I'm not learning shit. They're 50 to 80%, right? Like you're really on the outer edge of your ability and you're pushing that. So that's what you're saying. Like, but I would be willing to claim, Steve, that in the early stages, like in order to get to the place where you're doing deliberate practice, it probably took a few months, if not years, right?
Yeah, it took a couple months.
So from the standpoint of writing, the thing that I in the theory, so I've been reading a lot about the psychology of interest recently. This is a different project that has to do with the NSF. The reason that I do all that publishing in math is because I genuinely believe that, you remember that hierarchy, right? Like belief comes before blah, blah, blah. But so much of math is governed by interest. And what we do is we sterilize this. So anyways, I've been reading all these articles in the psychology of interest. And so they have this thing called situational interest, and then interest, I forget the name of it in the theory. It's like basically intrinsic interest. Situational interest is like you're in a situation and you're like, I've never thought about that. I have a little interest in this. And then as soon as you're out of the situation, you don't give a shit anymore, right? But then intrinsic interest is like, I am actively seeking, like, so for example, right now for podcasting, I have a situational interest in podcasts. Like within this conversation, like I am genuinely interested in learning about it. But there's so many open questions in my mind about that I kind of have a pause on. And so the amount of time that I spend on a daily basis reading about that is not high enough yet that I would say that is now an intrinsic interest. But right now, what I recognize is at some point I'm gonna make that transition. I just have to give myself, before, like one of the things that I do psychologically is I don't say I have to have the intrinsic interest right now. Why am I not doing more? No, I'll get there. I see the value of it. I'm starting to, but I have to have the right. I have to give myself the privilege of just the space to explore that and to really figure it out. And it's so, like, one of the things that Henry's teaching me so much about that. He was fucking rapping on the podcast. I thought to myself, like, what the fuck? This is so cool. For years, like for 3 years, I rapped like I was rapping like multiple times a week, and I didn't record a single thing. And I thought to myself, like, I would love to go back and listen to some of the stuff that I was saying at that point. And so, like, I can talk a lot more about that, like all the stuff. And you were at one point, you read the Triago stuff, and you were just reading it, and you were like working out the kinks. And I just thought to myself, like, fuck, that's so cool. I've never thought about that. But from the standpoint, like, I'm not to the place now that I want to go to the local skate park and like spend 45 minutes on the edge of my podcasting talent, because I'm just not there yet. I'm not, like, Henry's there, right? Henry's like, and I see that and I'm like, I want to hold on to those coattails and like let him drag me, But from the standpoint of your writing, like what I would say for ourselves is, like, just in your case, Steve, I would say that the 12 posts are literally just exploratory, right?